Good Tuesday afternoon. I'll get it out here in just a minute. Good Tuesday afternoon, Southwest Arkansas. Welcome back, Southwest Arkansas weather on Tuesday, May the 5th, 2026. Taking a quick look at your severe weather outlook for today. For mainly this evening, that's going to be the big story is this evening and afternoon as we are really this evening. As you know, we have a slight risk out. That is a level 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. That is that yellow colored region pretty much for all of southwest Arkansas, except down there in southern southeastern portions of our coverage area, down there near Camden, Magnolia, El Dorado, Smackover, and the Stephens area. You're in that marginal risk, a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, although you still have a chance tomorrow. All modes of severe weather will be possible. The main threats look to be damaging wind gusts, large hail, damaging wind gusts, and there's that tornado potential there as well. Looking at our tornado outlook map, you can see that green colored region, which is a very low end tornado threat. And then that 5% dashed area there, that is a SIG 1 dashed area. What that means is if you do see a tornado today, or if there is a tornado, it has that possibility where you may have one or two that have the possibility to be EF2 or stronger. It doesn't mean everyone that if you do get a tornado, every single one of those are going to be that level. It just means the conditions are capable of producing, maybe up to an EF2 strength or potentially greater size or greater strength there if it occurs. Now, one thing to mention is we are going to watch the tornado threat closely. Once again, it's on the low side, but you still need to pay close attention to it this evening. Large hail is going to probably be one of the big main threats with this, if I had to guess. You also see that dashed area, which means, hey, there's a possibility there for that's a SIG 1 dashed area for the possibility of 2-inch or greater size hail for most of where that slight risk is at for pretty much all of southwest Arkansas in general here. One thing I do want to make clear is today is going to be another one of those events where some people are going to stay dry. Some people aren't going to see much rain or any storms at all. Others are going to have that possibility for some severe weather. Just the general setup today is more of those isolated storm development. Biggest question remains, there's still some questions overall with the setup of how many storms form, where do they form at, how unstable do we get this afternoon? As you know, there's really a lot of heavy cloud cover over us. It's not super sunny or warm right now, but we should begin. Some data's trying to keep those clouds around. Some's clearing us out. The general idea is we should begin to destabilize a little more as we go into this evening. We should clear up some. I don't think we fully get rid of the clouds, but we could clear up some. You could have maybe some sun. We'll see about that. We just really got to watch this afternoon on how unstable we get there with that. Either way, some severe weather remains possible this evening. Like I said, there's still some questions with this. Here's the damaging wind outlook for tonight as well. You can see it's on the lower side, medium to low side, 15% there. In that slight risk area or that yellow colored area. Then tomorrow we have another chance severe weather, mainly for the areas to the south of us, to the south of the I-30 corridor, I should say there, for the Camden, Fordyce, Hope, Texarkana, Louisville, Magnolia areas, and then further north you have that marginal risk. We'll talk more about that threat tomorrow. This is mainly going to be focused on today's severe weather threat. Real quickly, I do want to show you the overall, or some data behind this. Remember, data is not perfect. This is not going to be exactly how it forms. This just helps us get the general idea. Remember that. Please remember that. Your future radar cast on your phones, that's a general idea. It's not the actual specifics. You can always take a look at future cast on your weather apps and go, okay, that gives you a general idea, but don't expect that to be the specifics of what's going to happen with that. Remember that. This is the general idea. General idea is we continue maybe to see as we go throughout the day today, maybe some of these like small little showers, just cloudy, like shower-like conditions. I don't really think that's gonna help us stay stable by any means. I think we're still going to get unstable later this afternoon and evening. Looking across the state, the general idea is probably right about that 5 to 6 p.m. time frame, you could begin to see some development, some supercells that develop across the state. Biggest question once again remains: how many? Where do they form? Where exactly do they form? That's going to be something we're just going to have to wait and see with as we go forward. But you can see there's 5 p.m. We got a storm, or the HRR models wanting to show a storm somewhere in northern Arkansas. Remember what I said. Don't take this as the specifics, but the general idea is we begin to see some development of some storms. That development continues to spread across northeast Texas, and we begin to see these potentially move more towards the northeast by that after really 6 p.m., closer to 6 to 9 p.m., and we'll have to watch these closely depending on where they're at, how many of them that we see for that tornado potential and large hail threat. Overall, the general idea is these storms probably will begin to cluster together after that 9 p.m. time frame, and you're probably going to start to see that shift to more of a damaging wind threat and large hail threat. Tornado threat will be on the low side with that as those storms cluster together, but the biggest thing is going to be how many storms form, where do they form at, and if any storm can stay isolated off by itself, it could carry, it could maximize that severe threat, that tornado and large hail threat, depending on how conditions continue to evolve through this afternoon. But that's the general idea. Is with these type of setups, it's always difficult to show model data because it's rarely correct. I'll just be honest with you. Use this as the general idea. These storms that form, they could be, over here. They may be over here. They may be northern Arkansas, southwest. It just depends on where they develop at. The general idea is conditions are favorable for some storms to form and some supercells to form and carry that severe weather potential this afternoon and evening, or really this evening, with that very large hail and low-end tornado threat that needs to be watched closely. Once again, that's something that we'll have to watch for. Either way, we could see some storms overnight, but this overnight would probably be a large hail, damaging wind threat. And then depending on where the boundary sets up for tomorrow, this is as we go into Wednesday, I'll briefly talk about that. We got to watch Wednesday afternoon for maybe some more storms across southeastern, far southern Arkansas tomorrow through that afternoon time frame before that moves out of the region there by late Wednesday night there as well. So real quickly, let me back this up. I just want to briefly mention once again, you got that large hail threat, that damaging wind threat's on the low side. It's still there, low to medium. This just looks more like a large hail sort of setup for us down here. Once again, that doesn't mean everybody is going to see a storm. I want to make that very clear. There's going to be areas that don't see much, if anything. There's going to be some areas with the way these storms are, you may only see some rain out of this, while other areas down the road from you, they may be getting some hail out of that. It just depends on where those storms form and how just how many form, where they form. General idea is they should be moving to the northeast, eastward across the region, and we will watch that closely. Once again, the tornado threat's going to be really that, I would say 5 to 9 p.m. In general is the time frame to watch closely for that tornado potential. I think we got to watch through midnight, but I think that tornado threat maximizes around that 5 to 9 p.m. time frame. Large hail will continue to be a possibility as well with that. You got to remember that with these supercells or supercell events. That's one of the biggest things with these events is you're going to hear me harp about it often because we get a lot of questions about it. These type of setups, somebody's gonna get a storm, somebody's not. It's just the way it goes. Who sees it, who doesn't, it depends on where they develop at, and that's we just don't have the technology to fully get a great for sure understanding of that, and we will just continue to monitor conditions this afternoon and evening. But the general idea is some storms will form later this evening. Some supercells will form probably after that 5 to 6 p.m. time frame, and they'll begin to move northeastward across the region, eastward, and they'll carry that large hail, low-end tornado threat. We got to watch it closely. If a storm can stay isolated off by itself and can work on the atmosphere around it and not have anything really impede it, that will, probably be your best tornado potential. Those that can kind of, sustain themselves and maximize the conditions around there. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I think, like I said, this is asking specific city questions. It's going to be tough to answer that. You're going to hear me repeat myself a lot. Really just stay aware this afternoon through that, I would say, 5 p.m. through probably midnight tonight. I'd say 5 to 9 closely. 5 to midnight's a good range. After that, we could still have some storms, but I think it starts to transition more to a damaging wind, large hail threat there by that after the midnight time frame. Now, tomorrow we got to watch that severe threat closely as well. We'll keep an eye on it. It just looks tomorrow maybe, depending on where that boundary sets up at today, where that cold front sets up at after the events today, will kind of play into a factor for tomorrow's severe threat tomorrow afternoon. So we'll watch that closely. Once again, nothing new that we're not used to here in Southwest or in Arkansas. We just had those large hail events previously. Every event's different. It doesn't mean the same areas are gonna see that again. It's a possibility, but it's something we'll have to watch and keep an eye on. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. If we haven't, and feel free to, even after this is done, this will be posted as a video here on the Facebook page and the YouTube page. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot us a message or comment on this post, and we'll try to answer them to the best of our abilities there as we can. Once again, main focus is going to be just continuing to stay aware this evening, have multiple ways to receive warnings, and like we always say, just in case for some random reason the internet goes out or we lose power, have multiple sources for that weather information. Arkansas Weather Network, the Arkansas Weather Watchers, your local meteorologists in the state, they're all great as well. There's just so many great sources here in Arkansas, so make sure you have those multiple sources just in case something like last time happens and we lose internet here at the Weather Center. That was a first for us, but that happens from time to time. So is El Dorado in the tornado risk area today and tomorrow? So El Dorado, you are in that tornado risk. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. It depends on where you actually you're on the edge of this one for today. You're actually not necessarily in that risk for today. I really honestly think you may not see a whole lot down there today. Like I said, it depends. I may say that, and you may get a storm to form a little further to your south, and you could possibly see, or you may get a storm to form down there and possibly see that. I think really that I-30 corridor and north and west of that area, really north and west of the I-30 corridor, probably over there to the Sheridan area, is probably where that severe weather threat's, I'd say, greatest for the day today. Once again, that's just all depending on who sees storms and who or where they form at, and all of that fun stuff. El Dorado, I think your severe weather threat's going to come tomorrow on Wednesday. I think that's when your threat's probably on the higher side. And that's something that we'll have to watch tomorrow. That's, your slight risk tomorrow. You are in that tornado risk tomorrow on Wednesday. Like I said, there's still some questions regarding tomorrow. It really depends on, where that boundary sets up at after today's event and where that cold front's at. If that cold front's further south and that's more, south of Arkansas, that may limit our severe threat, may make it more of an elevated risk. It just really depends. When I say elevated risk, that means more of a large hail threat and damaging wind threat. What needs to happen for the atmosphere to stabilize? You mentioned the cloud coverage, but I didn't follow. So regarding that sort of stuff, it really just for an atmosphere to stabilize, you really won't you won't a lot of cooling. You want rainfall. You want a lot of rainfall and some storms. Usually your atmosphere stabilizes after you get some storms, some rainfall, and it cools down the conditions around you. If you can really have that sun out and heating up the atmosphere, which I know we don't have a lot right now. So right now we don't have a lot of instability right now over us. So there's not a whole lot going on currently. So we don't have a lot of that storm fuel yet. So we're kind of stable right now. The biggest question is will we clear up some later? And it's I think we will. We'll see though. There's that's still some questions we gotta iron out, and some details we gotta iron out is how much will we destabilize. So if you want the atmosphere to stabilize, you won't. Usually it stabilizes after storms come through or after we get a lot of rainfall. And you have those instances where last week we had some afternoon storms, then we got some more that evening. It just really depends on what happens. Like last week we had those storms come through, but the sun come out right behind that and heated us back up and unstabilized that atmosphere right behind that. It's really, you can get really technical and that sort of stuff when you start talking about that. Pretty much, you want conditions in a way like today. You want them cloudy. You want a heavy cloud layer above us, and you want that to stick around. If that starts to clear and you start to get sun, which is a possibility of what could happen later this afternoon. Like I said, there's still some questions regarding that. So we'll have to watch that closely. Now, once again, this severe weather outlook that I'm on right here is for tomorrow. Now, asking about specific city locations, you're going to want to stay weather aware. Like Hot Springs, you're going to want to stay weather aware pretty much between 5 through midnight tonight. I'm not going to be able to give you really specifics. It just depends on where storms develop, where and when they develop. They'll carry that severe weather potential later this afternoon or later this evening. Depending on where they develop at and when, how many develop. That's going to be something we got to watch for, because there's a very good chance that this type of setup, if it's going to be isolated, there's a very good chance some areas you stay dry. You may not get a whole lot of rainfall today or storms, but other areas they could get the brunt of a supercell and could have that large hail threat. I mean, Look at last week. A lot of our southern areas, they didn't get a whole lot, while Amity, Alpine, Hope, I think Camden, they had a lot of damage from winds and large hail, while other areas miles down the road, they didn't see a whole lot. So this is some of those events that are tough to get across because there's a severe weather chance. The conditions are favorable. It just depends on where those storms develop at. And that's one of those biggest things with that there as well. So asking about Hot Springs really just depends. Will they move fast? I think give me one moment here. I just had that pulled up. Let me look and see what the general movement is. Yeah, they should be, when they develop, they probably be moving pretty fast. I mean, I'm expecting them to be moving based off of what we're current data. I think that they could be, and looking at what the National Weather Service says as well, I think they could be moving pretty fast to the east when and if and how many develop. Now, we'll watch that closely. That, we'll see with that, but they should be moving pretty fast. I'd say National Weather Service is kind of leaning towards 50 to maybe 60 miles an hour. We'll have to see with that, so that could be a possibility, and they could be fast moving storms, but we'll see with that. So if there's any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Once again, even after this is done, we'll come back to you and try to answer that to the best of our ability. Once again, specific city locations and timing on that, the best thing I can tell you is stay aware between, I'd say, 5 to midnight tonight. If you look at the radar and there's not a whole lot going on, just keep an eye on it, because we could get once we get a storm to form, it could start to get its act together, and when that occurs, these are going to be those. You get one storm here, you may get one storm here. They're going to be isolated in nature, so we'll have to watch it closely. I think honestly, depending on what happens to the north of us, I think that tornado threat's probably a little higher to our north, over northeastern Arkansas. They're just in a little bit more of the better shear environment. We're probably going to have a little better instability down here, or storm fuel, and we'll probably have that large hail potential. Now, that tornado threat we got to watch closely. Like I said, it's not zero. It's there. It's on the lower side, but we need to pay close attention to it. Like I said, the biggest thing is if you do get a storm to form and it can get off by itself away from other storms, that storm is going to be one you're going to have to watch closely. to see it has a pretty good chance once you get a storm off by itself like that, that it can maximize that severe threat in the environment, and potentially maximize that tornado threat. Now, like I said, will we see that? We'll have to see. It just, like I said, it depends on where we see a storm at, and or where how many storms we get and all that fun stuff. These setups are always fun because sometimes sometimes that cap holds like it did last Monday, and we don't see a whole lot, or we don't see much of anything. We'll have to see. I do think, though, we get a few storms later this afternoon or later this evening that will carry that severe weather potential. Now, I'm kind of repeating myself off a whole lot there with that, but I think that's all we have for now. Like I said, we'll be here with the live nonstop radar coverage over on YouTube. That will play, and we will break into coverage and talk like this if there is any life-threatening severe weather. We'll be live on Facebook if there is any life-threatening severe weather to talk about. So pay attention this evening. Have multiple ways to receive warnings, and please, I know there's a lot of different events going on. It's baseball, softball, track season, all of that. If you're out at a game, don't think you have to cancel your plans tonight. Just make sure you stay aware, make sure you're prepared, and just keep an eye on radar. Have backup plans just in case. And biggest thing is not to be scared. Be prepared. Know what to do in case a warning is issued, and have multiple ways to receive warnings. Have multiple ways to receive your weather information, and have multiple sources of coverage. Arkansas is blessed with some great sources across the state in general. So as always, have a good rest of your afternoon. We'll be here for you right here at your source for all things Southwest Arkansas weather. Thank you guys very much, and have a good rest of your Tuesday.